Right on, yeah.
Bill, thanks for taking time out of your life to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like I was saying, thank you for having me.
Like you, I totally believe in barefoot toe mobility. And I believe that we have to stay in motion in order to feel the fluidity of life. And
Yeah,
this podcast is called The Gamma Seekers because I believe everything is frequency. And if everything is frequency, I want to live in the most optimal frequency. And neurology has proven that there's these monks out there that have the ability to live in gamma, which is 31 to 100 hertz. That's our prime
okay.
optimal. And I believe that our breath and our fascia are going to be completely integral to living in these brainwaves. And you are someone that I admire so much because you're already doing these things and you have been doing these things. And you're based in Honolulu, so you got like amazing magnetics there. So I'd love to just hear about your desire when you wake up in the morning, your focus on durability, your focus on the magnetics of your body. Any stories that you could bring us to make us reach a little further?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. If we start with this island, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. My parents were there with the
Hmm.
military at the time. Both my parents are from Hawaii. My dad's from Maui. My mom is from the Big Island. Shortly after I was born, they moved back here. I think I was two. I've, I've lived here my entire life. I didn't realize the power or the effect that this land has had on me until I think I was 24 when I moved with my wife, when we both moved to California, just to experience, living out in the world a little bit. And we were there for 5 years, and it was some of the best years of our lives. We just always look back on that time in California and LA. It's just been so wonderful. And you'll hear people from Hawaii say this. There's just something about these islands and the land and the air and the sea, everything. You don't realize how integral it is to your being until you leave it and you get pulled. And I still don't know about magnetics and megahertz and all these various things that you're very expert in. I'm aware of how they work, but I didn't realize the pull that these islands have, because people refer to that when they leave, they have a very strong energy. And you know, I'm only now over the last few years since I turned 50. I'm 55 now, so in the last 5 years have I been really kind of getting more attuned to energy and the frequencies and breathing and meditation. And prior to that, I was kind of just like this barbarian caveman kind of weightlifter, want to be a soldier kind of guy. Yeah, I had a lot of hard energy on me in my earlier years. Anyway, yeah, Hawaii has a lot to do. I realize now the contrast of living here my whole life and just taking everything for just seemed normal, then being pulled away from it, and then having it pull me back. Hawaii is where I've always felt, and I feel good here. I feel this is where I wanted to have my family and yeah, to be. And I've always said that the energy of what I get here, and along with the energy that I get from my family and my friends and this whole thing, but the Hawaii, the way people in Hawaii are, they're the reason why I can do what I do with social media. I'm just going to talk about social media. They make everything I do better. But if I try to project, I've heard so often that people watch, especially fitness videos, then they leave feeling amazed or inspired, but they also leave feeling bad, feeling like deficient in some way. And
Hmm.
I know I'm a kind of a middle-aged guy, and I'm running around all my videos without a shirt on and doing all this stuff, but I try to impart a vibe to it. That's why I go out in basically my underwear with no shoes. Not only do I like to train without shoes, but I like people to see how little it actually takes, how
Hmm.
little you need to do this. I mean, I live at a townhouse, and my strip is just the walkway from the common area gate up until my
Yeah.
door, which is 8 feet behind me. And that's what I've done for 4 years. I do have a gym that I train my clients in, but I love most of my training that I love to do is out
Yeah.
there.
The way that you resonate for me is consistency. Sometimes you'll post a reel at like 9 p.m. at night for me or a little later, and you'll be repping out some like crazy low ab hang workout. And I've been trained professionally for 15 years, and my background is golf, which is violent in its own right. And I
Yes.
play instruments, so I never wanted
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to throw a punch. I just wanted to be violent with something else. I felt like I had way
Mm-hmm.
more leverage as a small person. And
Mm-hmm.
when you train at all doing combat, you feel your feet so much differently than any
Yeah.
other athletic training out there. And when you train the rings, you feel so much different about your shoulders and your back muscles compared to what any other training can do. And,
Absolutely.
we both, in our own ways, talk about omnidirectional training. I've
Yeah.
listened to you talk about the sagittal line and like how most training can be just in a hallway and it leaves our sides exposed. And in
Yeah.
the fascia training, there is something called the lateral band. It's the outside of the foot, runs up the side of the body to the jaw. And it creates, when we have lower body lateral band tension, it creates accidental TMJ issues, low back issues. And your workaround for those issues is brilliant. You've been, doing oblique exercises. So your approach to fixing problems is the tools are within you. Like all you need is a piece of sidewalk. All you need to do is functionally train. And I've had this question come up when I watch your page because you remind me of a military general. Like I for sure thought
Oh,
that you had a military background. And do you kind of live the military lifestyle? Do you wake up that same kind of way? And
my wife was laughing. I am very not military. I would have been great when I was a little kid. I was first inspired by Bruce Lee. I think I was 7 or 8 years old. And I saw him take off his shirt to kick someone's ass, and he was like, "Pah!" And all these muscles. And I had never seen, like, I saw guys with muscles, but I'd never seen all those little fibers and veins. And I was like, so and then I started training young. As I got older, then Van Damme, Schwarzenegger,
mm,
Stallone. Those were the guys in the
mm,
'80s when I was like fully, yeah. Those were my heroes. All those guys, Clint Eastwood. So I decided at an early age I was going to be a special forces soldier, and I groomed myself from probably age 14. I would sleep deprive myself. I would practice not
mm,
eating or eating just junk, simulating what I thought were the conditions of being a soldier. And then I graduated from high school and I applied for the military and I went through all the tests. Everything was good except they found out about these screws in my shoulder from a football injury in high school. And those permanently made me ineligible forever from military service. So that was a little disappointing because I had
mm,
trained, I'm going to be a soldier, but I couldn't. And but I had been training people the way I was training in high school. And back then, everyone wanted to be, I wasn't the only guy that wanted to be a soldier. A lot of us did. So we would train together in high school. And then in college years, I started training people, just my friends. And that's what I've been ever since. It always made sense to me to train as a soldier and as a fighter. So a soldier, the
yeah,
rucking, the long distance, being able to just persevere through long durations under hard conditions. Those attributes, I don't necessarily have them, but those attributes were things that I felt were very helpful. And especially if you apply the work ethic of a soldier or a farmer or a laborer, if you apply their work ethic to your training. So,
yeah.
and then to be a fighter. I am not a violent person. After the soldier thing went on, I moved to LA, and that's when MMA was starting to get big. So I thought for a short while I was going to do that, and I actually
Yeah.
fought in one of the first few MMA sanctioned, or it was an allowed, a legal fight, an MMA fight in Alabama, and this was in 1997. So it was illegal to do mixed martial
Under the
arts.
Gracies?
So I had trained for a short while with Halson Gracie because right before I moved to LA, he moved to
Mm,
Honolulu and he opened a school, and I was like, oh, that's some. But I trained with him a short while, And then when I moved to LA, I started working on movie sets, and some of the stunt guys knew all the jujitsu, and then the
Hmm.
few people that were just starting to do MMA, they were all connected with the Hollywood guys. So
Yeah.
one of these Hollywood stuntmen, I am not by any means a professional fighter. Okay, I took a little karate, some Thai boxing, little jujitsu. I'm still novice level in all of them to this day. And for an Asian guy, I was big and I was kind of like muscular. They arranged me to fight this guy named Gokor Chavichian. And Gokor
Okay.
he is a Russian sambo fighter. This guy, I mean, just the name. They
Hmm.
said, you're going to fight a guy named Gokor Chavichian. He was actually the nicest guy. Anyone that knows this guy knows he's the coolest, the
Hmm.
most humble, graceful. Yeah, but he was one guy back then that the Gracies were very reluctant to fight because, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, I ended up doing that for a short while. I fought him in
I'm
Alabama.
interested.
I'm going to totally just humiliate myself, but it's that fight is available. You can see it on YouTube. If you put Maeda or Bill Maeda
For
and
real?
Gokor or Bill Maeda MMA, you can watch this guy just work me. But
Yeah.
the thing is, despite what that fight looks like,
Oh.
I knew I didn't have a chance. So it wasn't quite a fixed fight in that they didn't tell me to make a fall. They told me,
Hmm.
just you know what you do, just do it to him 100%. But they also, well, I can say this now, it's just like almost 30 years. They also asked me not to punch him in the nose or in the face, and for a good reason,
Interesting.
because he literally had like some kind of a surgical
Yeah.
procedure
Right.
that was done close to the event, and they
Yeah.
just didn't want it. And I'm not going to piss this guy off, so if they say don't punch him in the face, I'm not. But they
Yeah.
said you can do anything else. You
Yeah.
can
You don't want to hurt
twist
somebody's
his head
brain.
off. And the way he took me down and just won, it looked like it really hurt, and it kind of did. But the way he did it was he's so good at it. It was almost like, it sounds weird. It almost felt good the way he armbarred me, and how it was just like I was resisting, but he's so good at what he did. He just unrolled me. He just like unfurled me and just submitted, like cranked my shoulder a
Huh.
little, and then just let me go. And as he was, yeah, he's gentle. Like I knew, okay, I'm done. As soon as he got me in that armbar, I'm like, oh, there's no way out of this.
Yeah.
And I tried. I thought I was being
Interesting.
pretty wily, but no, every trick I had done, he was, like they say, 10 steps ahead of any.
Thanks for sharing your failure.
I can look back on it
No,
now.
that's
It's
a
funny.
be
And plus, I was so big and just, I was such a,
yeah.
just like, all right, let's fight. And it's like now, if I actually had to fight someone in a ring, I'd be terrified. And like, I was terrified. Like, I'm all bouncing around like, oh, I'm bad. But I was freaking. That was one of the most scared I've ever been, because, MMA was still kind of like open. It was considered they didn't, even back then, there might not have been in Alabama, they might not have had restrictions on even like, gouges and fish hooks and things that are illegal now.
Huh.
Initially, in especially in the brand new days back then, they didn't quite have all those walls weren't up that back then. So I didn't know I didn't know this guy can kill me if he wants to, right?
Yeah, so you were like, he was gentle. He didn't eye gouge
I
me.
was so grateful that he didn't kick or punch or neck crank me. He just
Hmm.
gently, like, it was like kind of like almost like an adjustment. It's like, oh,
Submitted you.
thank you. He didn't harm me at all. And then later on, I rolled with him in Sunset.
What do you mean you rolled with him in Sunset?
Sunset Boulevard. He had a
Okay.
studio up on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood. And then I actually rolled with him.
Hmm.
He could literally say, okay, what do you want, 30 seconds or 15 seconds? That's how many seconds before I win?
Huh.
I would say, okay, let's try 15. Let's just warm up. And sure enough, literally at 15 seconds, he'd set a little timer. He got me in 15 seconds, and I'm trying hard.
Wow.
So,
I've been trying to think of a way that I could ask you this question because it's so
mm,
random, but you just got me there because motions sometimes feel like chiropractic adjustments. And
Yeah.
as much as I study the fascia, I used to run a chiropractic office. It was upper cervical chiropractic office. I have a really weird neck, actually. I have 3 vertebrae fused. So I'm very into it because
Oh,
of my natural birth fusion. I need to make my spine strong.
okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
I need to keep it strong and I need to keep it flexible, you know?
Okay.
And my study of the spine has brought me into, well, okay, the spine's important, but when we move around the fascia changes the spine. Now, when you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about that fighter holding you in a position and you felt like it was a
Mm-hmm.
chiropractic adjustment, I've been watching your jaw workout videos where you're
Oh, no,
biting
yeah.
onto a heavy weight
Oh,
and pulling it up.
right. Okay.
So the jaw is I know it's a weird question. That's why
No,
I was like, how do I?
I love talking about the jaw. No, all good.
Yeah. So the jaw is connected to the skull, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
sphenoid bone. And the sphenoid bone is right in front of are the C1, which is what the chiropractic clinic is infatuated with, because this has to do with how our brain can move the cerebral spinal fluid through the rest of the spine so that we can have full nerve impulse to the whole body, right?
Okay.
And I just went to this amazing biohacking conference with this guy, Dr. Jalal, and he's been treating dentistry in Australia.
Okay.
And what he's been doing is basically taking braces off of kids because he feels like braces are making the structure perfect, but it's also locking up the skull plates and it's changing how our skull it breathes. So,
Okay.
the plates of the skull move in motion. And anybody that does inversions and rings, you can feel that.
Yeah, and cranial sacral
Mm-hmm.
therapy, right? I took a few courses in that, and all those
Yeah.
the little sutures or the plates, the thing
Yes.
moves around. Yeah.
Have you ever given yourself a chiropractic adjustment by accident with your sphenoid bone? Like, have you ever had a moment where you lift it up and you're like a crack or pop or like in the middle of your head?
I am not a very scientific person. I don't read much. Even when I was a kid,
That's
I'm
okay.
very visceral. It's like if something feels, that's why I always frame like what I do when I post something in terms of me. It sounds a little narcissistic when I'm all, so I am doing, and I'm this, and I'm feeling, because I can only speak for myself. It's not, so I always want to frame like I'm not telling the person watching the video, this is what you should do. This is what I'm doing. And when I do those lifts, like I guess the one that's the most basic is like that barbell that I lift off the floor. And
Mm-hmm.
that could be a kettlebell, it could be it could be anything. But I only do 1 rep. When I bite down on surgical towel, my dad he's a surgeon. So when I bite down on that towel, I'm basically trying to fuse my skull. So the towel basically is just a conduit between my skull and the weight. But once I bite down, like if
Hmm.
I want the upper and lower teeth to become a mono tooth. So I just imagine, and I only bite in the molars. I never
Interesting.
put any, so the towel never goes across the front teeth, because I tell people that's like taking a
Yeah.
white picket fence and leaning straight back on it. So I never, I imagine a row of houses here and a row of houses here. And when I bite down and they're only aligned so all of them are stacked. So the line of pull is here. And it's so that way I can also really bite
Yeah.
down hard on the masseters. But once I lock onto the bell enough where everything goes, the bell, my head, my neck, and my body, that's a moment I go like still. I don't even see the
Hmm.
bell. In order for me to connect everything through my jaw, my neck, my back, shoulders, everything, and so I can push off with my legs, and that platform stays
Yeah.
stable all the way up as far as I can go. What I get out of that is a type of, it's a purity of I guess mind that it's hard for me to achieve by sitting. I can do it with holotropic breathing as well, especially on the empty breath holds. But that visceral,
Okay. So empty lung apneas.
yeah, that what they're called? Okay, I like empty lung apneas. That
Yeah. I'm
totally makes
sorry.
sense.
I was just like, I shouldn't have used that word. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
No, empty lung apnea. That's cool.
You know,
Um,
talking about breathing, when you are, because you do a ton of stuff and you may say you're not scientific, but you actually can feel the levers within the body. And I've seen you explain like bicep curls with a tiny little elbow rotation in order to have maximum effort. And like that's why you're into asymmetrical stuff. So you may say you're not scientific, but you can experience the momentum build within using full body lines. And I feel like that makes you brilliant because there are so many athletes out there that train so linearly, like the classical positions without challenging the balance or the toe or the lateral line. And I know that you can break things down differently. There's 650 muscles in the body. And I feel like it's so overcomplicated when you have a client with you 1 hour a week to communicate what they need to do in an action with muscles. So I've just transitioned everybody to fascia. And there's only 9 major fascia lines. And when you're doing any straight arm exercises like rings, right? I was watching you do the ring L sits. And when I do the straight arm stuff, I like to do circles because it's so tough. Like when you do like your 5 dips and then you rotate out to lock the elbows. But then when you lock the elbows, try to get 5 circles in one way and then 5 circles in the other way before you
Right
finish.
now, I'm just trying to hold with my
I know.
inside of my elbows just forward and not falling either forward or backwards through it.
The training of these little tiny muscles for the false grip, it all just takes, there's so much conditioning of just holding like 40% of your body weight in the iron cross.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
that's why I like those little cable thingamajiggies that I got from Shogun. They allow me because I feel there's so much value in the iron cross exercise. A lot of people will say, it hurts when I do this, but when we test their
Yeah.
ability to, it's not only is it kind of weak, it's also asymmetrically weak. And as soon as we just strengthen up, if this hurts, I don't usually say, then let's strengthen it with this. I actually have them do adductions into
Right.
just squeezing. And it doesn't have to be those. I have a cable machine at work. Elastic bands work great.
Mm.
People don't have something at home. I have, okay, lie on your back, put your elastics above you, and you can still iron cross. You don't have to have it hung from a ceiling. But yeah, no,
I find it
yeah,
fixes a lot of shoulders.
it
Just
does. It
wanting
does.
to do that, you just, in that
Yeah,
process, you fix your shoulders, you fix your neck.
absolutely.
You're doing those, mhm. When you're doing those slow static exercises, I noticed that you pay attention to your breath probably better than anybody I've seen on the internet. You are a pure nose breather, which I love and I preach constantly. But you're also into diaphragm breathing, which most people quit on in a power move. Like you
Oh,
actually are connected to it. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about like, A, how did you learn it? Because you're doing it pretty good. Um, so I'm curious.
okay. Yeah, that's such a good question. Okay, so people ask me like, how do you come up with what you do? How did you breathe? How did you learn this? And I didn't really study with a lot of people. I'm a little socially awkward, and I've always been a little kind of like after I learned that the military wasn't in my future. I I became a trainer, and I've been kind of locked up in my little studio with my private clients for over 20 years. But everything I do, my breathing and the way I design some of the exercises that I train or that I post has to in some way, or it comes from a, a deficiency that arose either in fighting or soldiering. So once we are
Hmm.
always going to come back full circle to this fighting thing. So jujitsu, I've loved jujitsu and I've never ever really gotten better at it because I go to jujitsu class. I started early and before I moved in my early 20s, did a little bit, stopped for a long time and picked it up at 50. And by then it's
Hmm.
developed so much. And I know I would, even against a very novice fighter, they would always win. So I actually made it my exercise to go to jujitsu class to study how they defeat me, to see how pitting my
Hmm.
brute strength and my whatever athleticism I have, what the formula is, and there's a sequence of positions that is formulaic to jujitsu that and I learned, okay, so first they want to get, side control. Then they're going to go for mount or try. So all those things. And then my thing was just to see where physically I became deficient. And this is what I really learned. Physically, I could be quite capable of handling certain positions, but either their knee was on my belly or they had me bent in a way with my leg
Mm-hmm.
in the air where my breathing, I believe it's called breathing under duress, that became very important to me, was
Hmm.
being able to, in a very restricted position, still be able to breathe from my belly and
Interesting.
not freak out here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of the
Hmm.
breathing, like when I do maximum, I rarely do this, but if I do any maximum squat or a deadlift, the people always say, "Oh, you better be careful. You could hurt yourself." That looked like it was a lot of effort. What always prevents me from exerting myself in a way where I could possibly hurt myself is my standard for the exercise. The scaffolding on which I build the exercise
It's
is my
slow.
breathing. So I use squats and deadlifts and
Hmm.
push-ups and bench press and pull-ups. I actually use those to strengthen my breathing. Whereas oftentimes breathing is supposed to be used to
Hmm.
kind of to like, you know, or gamify your event to make you better at your deadlift or at your run. I use my running to train my breathing. So I will only run. There are certain days when I'm wanting to do more distance or more of a internalized run. My standard is I cannot move at a pace that outstrips my ability to maintain not just nose breathing, but deep nose breathing. And that before I used to just run and try to just because I was trying to run faster, I was trying to
Hmm.
perform, or I was trying to look like the guys in the CrossFit videos. But all I did was just beat myself up, and I didn't actually get that much better. But I found that the more I connect a breathing, some kind of a breathing awareness or discipline to anything I'm doing, the better that thing goes without me trying to make it better. If I
Can I
focus on
ask?
breathing, yes.
Can I like when you're breathing and you're focusing on it? Can you feel all of your nasal glands? The nasal glands come out halfway to the eyes and then all the way up here. And most people are just breathing in through the tip. But the way that you're talking about it, are you feeling everything open and move?
I feel sometimes when I'm breathing, and like even now, kind of like a raccoon eyes kind of thing. It's just, yeah, I feel like I have a lot of space here. Before, I was a king of mouth breathing. When I was much
That's
younger,
amazing.
I was like, I was,
Hmm.
I like the way I speak now. A lot of the people that knew me in high school, they said, why do you talk the way you do now? Because I enunciate and I try to form my words more deliberately because in my younger years, I used to kind of be nasally like this. And I would just, not stutter, but my
Hmm.
words were not very well crafted because I was a mouth breather. I had no awareness of how to breathe. And I literally think that over the years that I have been consciously breathing, and that's probably easily, gosh, 15 years, I've been aware of practicing breathing, at least it literally changes the shape of the face. Um,
Yeah,
because
it
I
sure
think as
does.
people age, a lot of what people equate as normal aging, I think a lot of that, the facial structure has to do with how much I tell my clients that air are the weights that your
Yeah.
nose needs to get stronger. So pulling that air
Hmm.
in, and if it's hard, like one side's like, right, everyone has
Yeah.
that collapsed.
60% of people have a deviated septum, but I believe there's this one scientist who says that we all should have a septum because that's what circulates the air through the
Mm,
nasal glands. And
yeah.
I always thought that that was the great way to put it because the airflow, if it's trapped, it just means we're pulling in too hard. Versus if we just slow that down, everything will expand. I mean, it's all soft tissue. Everything can change. Are you okay? Swallowed air there, I think.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
What's your
Um,
wife's name, by the way? She
my wife's name
she's
is
like a
Leslie.
famous lady off screen right now. Hi,
It's
Leslie.
funny. Brooke says hi. Leslie says hello. He's my technical director and savior. So,
Yeah, we all need one of those. A team
yeah,
member. Hey,
absolutely.
This is going to be a random question, but
Yeah, sure. I love
do
random
you
questions.
vibe with being an Olympian, an athlete? I do this thing called archetypes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's my category system for humanity because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
beekeeper and
Mm-hmm.
bees are amazing. I mean, they show us the
Mm-hmm.
pattern, and the queen dies every 5 years. So, humanity, in my opinion, are just like the bees. And there's 136 different archetypes that each healthy little clan would have so that
Mm-hmm.
all the pieces, all the roles are being played. And as long as we're
Right.
playing our part, it's healthy. And there are 3 different archetypes that really center on the excellence of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is the Olympian. And the Olympian is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was like
Mm-hmm.
looking for molded, sculpted perfection.
Mm-hmm.
The athlete is more like Michael Jordan,
Okay.
looking to set all of the records, not as obsessed with the sculpting. And then the warrior is more obsessed with protecting what is his and being able to have the ability to be strong. But the warrior really embodies that peaceful strength, the knowing that you have that violent power and then hopefully never using that violent power. And I was just like, what's your vibe with athletics? Like, what's that spiritual connection for you?
Without thinking too hard about it, because I'm a feeling guy, I would say
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmingly I'd be the warrior. If I'm a warrior, I am definitely one who, well before I ever started training, even as a little boy, I was very protective. I was militant protective. Like even as a small kid, I would attack someone that attacked my mom or threat.
Yeah.
Like I would bite chunks out of that person. And so I've always had this protector thing in me. But as I get older now, and what I want to actually kind of protect, I guess myself and others from is feeling I get and this is not virtue signal, and I don't. What I'm wanting to do with my platform is kind of make actually it was I understand that people are bored with their training, just bored. They've done years of deadlifts, years of squats, years of curls, bench press. So I'm trying to at the very least add a little excitement, variation, trying to rescue them or maybe save them from just not missing a workout. One of my favorite comments to this day that makes my day is that I was supposed to train today and I went home instead, and I was just and I somehow your video came up, and now I'm in the gym and I'm posting this comment to you, and I want to thank and that kind of comment, so if I can just kind of like right now, but I'm now realizing that my platform grew since those days, and more people put attention, so I guess now and it's a good thing that this company has kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone to go in my office and start making short little tutorials that actually teach people why and what I'm doing. And I have a short attention span, so I'm trying to design these to be like TikTok or Instagram shorts or reels. Just get as much
Micro
digestible
learning with
information as
stories.
possible. But definitely the warrior. I'm not an athlete. I've never been
I like
I'm the
that.
always like you put me in a group of people to learn a physical task. I'm the last guy to learn it, but I've learned that's okay because when it's my turn to teach that thing,
Mm.
I can usually teach it and reverse engineer it better than the people that might have picked it up quicker. But now they would struggle to actually transfer that knowledge to somebody else. So that's my gift. Is I'm not the alpha
Mm.
guy. I'm not the apex predator in the group. Never. Yeah, but yeah, I'm definitely a warrior in the sense that, and I try to show because I'm struggling at this age much more, not just with my training, but with everything in general. It's just at 55, I'm feeling, I'm now feeling, I'm aware that my age is something I can't just ignore. It's not terrible, but in 40s and 45, even up to 50, it was like that's just a mindset, man. But now I physically have like certain orthopedic things going on that I can say what I want, but they're still there.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Yeah,
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about
sure.
how does your body feel? How are your joints feeling? Because that's what I specialize in. I had
Yeah.
an issue as a kid, so
Mm,
with my right hip. So I had
okay.
arthritic symptoms at 12. So by the time I was 30, they were recommending like a hip replacement. So even though I'm only 35, part of my body is in its 50s. And
Hmm.
because of that, I wanted to continue to train. And so I developed a ground up fascia sequence that, after lots of experimentation, works with inciting the fascia to recreate hyaluronic acid. And without getting too technical, hyaluronic acid is that collagen liquid that makes
Yes.
all of the collagen within you glide across each other. The thing that separates it from a lot of the other fascia release conditions out there is there's no downtime. So, like, we're not finding the densifications and then ripping them apart. We're just treating the whole structure from the ground up
Mm.
and asking the fascia to recreate this acid over and over. And the clients that are consistent with my work, they get dramatic results really quick. And there's some results that I'm getting that I still don't quite understand. Like, my vision has improved by
Mm.
50% on both eyes, and my astigmatism is gone. Which
Wow.
I didn't really know you could reverse that. And I've only seen it in one other case, and they're the guys that are adjusting the sphenoid bone. So they're playing
Oh.
with the horizontal fascia band of the eyes. So, I
Okay.
mean, I love studying doctors that are getting results that are too good. Um,
Right.
but I'm so interested in hearing, you've been training great. How are your joints feeling, and how are you treating your fascia?
Okay. So the only thing that saved me over from myself, from what I'm going to tell you I just did, insistence on breathing as properly as I could during whatever I was doing. Because I
Mm,
started posting to YouTube or social media in April of 2020. Hawaii got locked down in March of 2020. So by April, my daughter and I were both bored enough that we were challenging each other to kind of do stuff online. Her thing was to open up a cupcake business online, and my thing was to start posting workout videos to YouTube. And so things kind of started to to grow from there. You know what, Brooke? Hold on. Before I go any further, what was your original question?
now I have to
I
remember.
told you I was going to do this.
What were you doing with your
Sometimes I get all
fascia?
caught. So let's fast forward. So that started in April of 2020. It's taken me four
Mm,
solid years. I trained when my social media thing started to, and I was getting all these comments. And you have to understand,
yeah.
I I realize now that I struggled with kind of, I guess, long-term depression, and I've got some ADHD and things that I just didn't take care of until recently. Like all these things I'm talking about, I'm recently
Mm,
addressing and taking care of them. Yeah, so I for four so once I started getting validation from these nice people on YouTube. And then my daughter taught me how to post on Instagram and on TikTok. And people were just saying the nicest things. And some people give me some shit. But in general, it was really cool. I had never really received that kind of interaction from strangers ever in my life. And that was very addicting for me. When people talk about
mm,
the dopamine hit they get from watching social media. I've never heard anyone talk about the dopamine hit you get from comments and DMs, and just the things that people were saying were extremely kind and very inspirational to me. It's, in a way, it saved me. But like they're saying, gosh, are you
mm,
going to keep doing this? This is really helpful. I love that last workout. You got another one? And, I was raised by my mom to please people. I mean, if your people are like digging what you're doing and you can give them more, then give them more. And I took that way too serious. And I went outside every day for 4 years straight. Holidays, I could be traveling in Japan, it
yeah.
didn't matter. And I was going to do some physical challenge
Yeah.
and post it. So my joints, for that reason, my toes, my arches, my ankles, my knees, they are they were threat.
Mm,
By the time I stopped this nonsense about 6 months ago, so for my entire life up until about the last 6 to 9 months, I've only gotten by on less than 5 hours of sleep all my entire life.
Yeah.
And that, so by the time I stopped, I have not really trained that hard for 6 months. Every now and then you'll see me I will do my
Classic
barbell lift. I'll
warrior,
do,
by the
but
way.
yeah, right now it's requiring a different and higher discipline for me to train myself, just so I'm not losing things. So I'll test certain lifts to make sure I'm maintaining my ability
Mm.
there. But before, it was just balls to the wall. I wanted people to see me shaking and all my veins coming out of my neck, because people were getting there. Yeah, yeah. I know I had a lot of young guys. I've lost a lot of followers over the last, say, 6 months. I know I have, because I'm not bringing what I used to, and my thing is, it's okay, it's all right, because I don't think that message I was giving, especially if they were older guys
Mm.
trying to do what I was, that's not necessarily
Yeah.
the. So now I'm trying to bring a slightly more balanced thing.
Good. Good. I vibe with your more balanced thing, with your breath approach to the slow reps. I
Good.
honestly would love to help you rehab.
Yeah, no, I would.
Because to me, 30% of our time training to me should be caught up in massage, not just stretching, but
Yeah.
massaged and getting into where the scar tissue is and taking care of old damage, and then inciting the fascia to keep creating this acid. And somebody like you've beat up your body very differently than other people. What are you doing for rehab currently?
Yeah, okay. So there are many days where I don't train, like I don't strength train, I don't do cardio, but I've been doing a lot more with red light therapy. I got this bomber of a unit
Good.
that I have in my office, and I'll do kind of I do a lot of breathing in front of that thing. I have something called a hunkering
Mhm.
stool. It's just this low spring-loaded stool thing that allows guys like me who are very stiff in our hips and our knees. We can sit in like, I should sit on one now.
I'm
You seen
on
this?
something at that height right now without the
Okay.
spring. Yeah,
Oh,
I've
okay.
seen that on your
You
videos,
seen
man.
this
That thing
thing,
was
right? Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So this is like one of the
Yeah, it's awesome.
coolest, one of the coolest things. I'm realizing I'm just sitting on my couch, and I don't know about you, but when you have dogs like mine and they're always battling with each other, I got to put this doggy armor on all of my furniture. But we found that's a good investment. All right. So,
100%.
all right.
I only have one
So,
dog,
yeah.
but my mom has her brother, so it's battle time every
Oh,
night. I
oh, okay.
completely
So you have
understand.
siblings as well, then. Let's see. Let's go.
I do.
Wait,
I was
hold
there
on.
for her birth, actually. I had her mom was part of my life, so she's second gen for me, which is pretty fun.
Oh, funny, because, yeah, like where I'm sitting right here, about a foot from my left foot, my two dogs, and they were all born right here where
Okay.
yeah, like inches from
Oh,
where I'm sitting. So we're kind of close to them for that reason.
I love that.
Over that 4 year period, pretty much my entire system kind of collapsed. I almost felt like I was going to have a heart attack or a stroke. Now I feel so much better.
Okay.
My More important than working out is sleep now. I'm getting about 6 to 6.5 hours, which is still not great, but it's way better than what I was getting before. And so now my toe, but
Yeah.
maybe you can relate to this. If I had to describe how my toes, my feet, my
Mm.
ankles, it's like the farther away from my heart, like down in my toes and my ankles, they feel like the connective tissue is dry, like it's desiccated. It
Yes.
feels like creaky, like that.
Yes.
And it seems like, okay, my knees are less dry than my ankles, and my ankles are less dry than my toes. But it literally feels like all those fibers that are
Mm.
in your tendons and ligaments. Like, imagine taking like a roll of pasta and trying to bend it, and some of them going like
Mm.
that. That's what it kind of feels like my joints are, and I'm guessing it has
Yes.
to do with that hyaluronic and that fluid, right? So I'd love to hear what you have to say, and we can.
I would like to gift you, in exchange for your time and your energy, a membership to my Gamma Seeker membership. And my courses are
Thank you.
great, but the
I'm sure
Gamma
they
Seeker
are.
membership has like 60% more on the breath in the
Okay.
fascia. And for people like you, it's you'd rip through those courses and you'd be like, okay, Brooke, now, what's next? And it's like, that's what the membership's for, because it's broken into levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the breath, there's ways that as an opera singer, you strength train the breath. And when you see they're so easy. You can watch a movie and put a plate on your tummy. And as long
Right.
as the shape of your exhale is coming down and your back is flat, you can
Mm.
actually strength train the diaphragm to hold like 80 pounds. The musician Pink,
Yeah.
she sings a
Right.
song belting with like 100-pound woman on her stomach. And it's
Wow,
like, that's
that's
how singers
crazy.
train. So we have full control, but it also reduces your breath rate naturally. And for somebody like you who's learning how to drop those brainwaves, so I could only imagine how much pressure you were putting on yourself waking up and the demanding that you do something excellent on the internet twice a day,
It's interesting
you
you
know?
said that because what's really, I think, a lot because the first few months, like easily the first 3 months, I was like, okay, we're not going to even, we're going to go days and days and days without training, and nothing changed for 3 months. And I was getting really discouraged with that. And then even after 5 months, I was barely changing. And then what changed, and then all of a sudden things started to change rather quickly. And it occurred to me, I was like, you know what? I think what the difference is here is it's taken my nervous system about this long, after 4 years, it's taken my nervous system this long to understand and realize that it's not going to get the shit kicked out every single day. And I think that's what was interfering more with my recovery than even the training. The daily was never ending. Because once I stopped doing that, I also started getting sick, which I considered good because
Mm,
I feel like for 4 years, my system was just using every resource it could to keep my immune system up. So,
yeah,
because it felt like I guess I was telling my body, we are in a state of war, and this war just doesn't end.
yeah. Versus we're having a good time.
In the months following, I got sick frequent. I got several colds, but I also, after I got
Mm,
through them, I felt much better. And I also kind of believe that the body opportunistically sometimes allows certain pathogens or whatever to activate the immune system for a bigger purpose. And that's what I felt was going on. Like my body's like, okay, fine, but you're actually going to let us repair things. We're going to start doing that now. But
yeah.
it's like every time you pick up trash in your house, somebody else throws two pieces down. You're just going to wait till that person moves or before you actually start cleaning up the house. But if every time you try, more shit is being added to the body, just goes, you know what? I'm just going to wait till you're done throwing stuff on and I'll clean everything up at once. So, yeah, that's been very
That was a
helpful. But
beautiful metaphor.
oh, I'm glad it just occurred. That's kind of how what my body's doing. Well, sitting in the squat
Yeah.
position actually is way more comfortable.
I'm so happy that you're not beating yourself up for us anymore. Random question. I have a number of clients that are in their 60s, and they are my stinker butts. They are the ones that I'm having a hard time keeping them training.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them get great results and they lock in and they're my A plus students. And then other ones feel like it's too late. And I know it's not. And all I want to do is give them the beauty of consistency. And I'm always using metaphors for nature and growing papayas and growing watermelons. But I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know, what do you use for your clients that are wanting to quit unnecessarily?
You're talking about strength training or some kind of an exercise?
I teach the breath and I teach fascia. So I'm oftentimes in the rehabilitation for people where, they're an athlete or they were an athlete for 30 years and they've gotten off the bandwagon because they had a knee pain. And now that knee pain has kind of kept them from training.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can breathe for us, right? Even in the simplest form of the breathing exercise, there's only
Mm-hmm.
one person that can hold yourself accountable for your deepest breath, and that's you. Only you can tell me if you've hit maximum capacity in there and if we're stretching it out to its fullest.
Mm-hmm.
And some people have grit immediately and they
Mm-hmm.
want to be their best. And some people don't, but they know they need to do it. And do you have any of those wonderful little illustrative metaphors that
Well,
you use?
here's the thing I have with, and certainly with older clients, but let's just say people in general who are brand new to fitness or are re-entering fitness after a long break due to illness, injury, or just lifestyle circumstances. I always assume that regardless of why they're coming back or why they're wanting to do this, that whatever their current life is, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of things they're already dealing with, with work, family, finances, health, just a bunch of things, relatives, friends. There's already a lot on everybody's plate. So if I want to add something like strength training or exercise to this schedule, this menu of things, this burden, if you will, I want to make that thing as non-intrusive to their current situation as possible. So I usually will start with exercise movements they are familiar with. I used to try to choose for them what I was taught or what I felt were the best exercises for them. But in most cases, they hated those exercises, even if they were fundamental, like squatting,
Huh.
curls, whatever. But so I
Yeah.
would always say, well, what have you done in the past that you recall you could just do? I'll say, well, I used to do squats, I used to do
Hmm.
curls, I used to do bench press or push-ups. But I can't do a push-up now because my shoulder's like this and my wrist is broken, and I can't squat anymore because I had this L4, whatever. So I said, okay, fine. But you're familiar with how to do those. They say, yeah. I said, but don't ask me to squat because I said, I know, I just heard you. You're cool. So I said, if we were to take and then I'll demonstrate a squat for them. I'll say, so you can't do this, and I'll squat I'll do what I'll do as a squat. They'll say, no way. I mean, I just told you. I said, okay, great. If we were to at some point in your life, you could do this though, right? Yeah, like 30 years ago. And these people are fun. I'm okay, great. Don't trip. Here, follow me. I said, so what I just showed you, you used to be able to do 30 years ago, right? So your body has all those parts to do that. Yeah, but not what you did. I said, I know, not what I did. If what I just did, if we divided that into 10 equal segments, so the distance that I squatted,
Mm.
we divided that into 10 equal segments. Do you feel you could enter the first segment, what we'll call zone one? Could you go zone one and come back up? Could you do that a few times? They go, yeah, I think so. And
Hmm.
so we start them at zone one. And now here's what usually happens. It's like all they do
So
is
you make it
barely
too
bend.
easy.
We make it
Okay.
so irritatingly easy that like they're rolling their eyes off. Okay, you ready for zone two? Zone two is the second 10th plus so these two, put them together. But it seems like a little
Hmm.
trick. But what I'm doing is showing them if you said you can't squat, and usually these I can't squat people, or I haven't squatted since high school, and they have some preconceived notion of why they can't, and let's say a lot of it is true. If we kind of take what they think is a big giant task, and this is basic, some kind of a problem solving strategy, but we incrementalize it and we graduate them through the increments. So we get them so redundantly, boringly confident with that first increment that they're wanting to go into that second one. And then they find
Yeah.
out this is just as boring. But then they're in the fifth or the sixth zone. So they're 60% into their squat. But now that then you didn't tell them you need to squat to 60% of what I did. Because they would say, no, I can't. I just told you my knee. You're not listening to me.
Hmm.
I said, no. But if you just kind of we make the barrier to entry on, because for most people, let's admit it, whether they enjoyed weightlifting when they were young or not, if they're doing it now, it's most likely a means to an end. It's not so they can pick up,
Hmm.
like meet people in the gym or impress chicks or whatever. Now it's they have to. So it's a means to an end. So we
Functional.
try to
Yeah.
make, yeah, and same with the push up. Like, you're not going to make me push up now, are you? I'm like, you just said you can't. I said, so can you go in a push up position? And like, and if that, most people can, most people can hold a push up position. If their wrists are funky, we give them those little push up handles or whatever they need and put them on a wedge.
Pirouettes. Yeah.
Yeah, we just put them on an
Mm.
incline. I try to avoid knee push-ups because for people that do them,
Okay.
continue
Oh,
doing
that's
so. I
interesting.
just like to do the
Yeah.
full plank push-up because the toes addressing the floor that stretch into the arch of the foot, going
Yeah.
into the calf, and but also the connectivity of the quadricep into the hip flexors and everything that bridges that link to
Yeah.
me is more so from the toes to the hip bones. So from the where the big toe
Mm.
is that is more important to me than the upper body. So even if they sag a little or whatever, I want them first to just be from, and then once they're able to hold that just for a little bit, same thing. We'll take this entire range of motion. Imagine what it would be like to divide it into 10 equal segments. And we're going to master that top 1/10 of that zone
Yeah.
one. And people get surprisingly tired in just that top 10. But they now know if they never see me again, I tell them, okay, well, you know how this works. You don't actually need me to guide you through
Yeah.
all
You
the
just built
zones.
the sequence for them.
I just gave you a way of thinking of any exercise. How about the curl? Because my husband
Yeah.
we only have one pair of weights and it's too light for him, but it's too heavy for me. I said, can you hold them here? Yes. If we divide this entire range of motion by 10, they go, okay, all right, 1/10, just do here. And if that's like ridiculously stupid easy, then go to zone two. Ooh, zone three, somewhere around 5 or 6, things start getting exciting,
Yeah.
and then put them down. The main thing is you do not need a full range of motion to get immensely strong relative to your current condition. So if you can barely hold the plank right now
Mm.
for 30 seconds, then holding the plank for 60 seconds will make you stronger systemically. And it'll now prepare you for zone one, zone one,
Mm.
zone one. And then once you get kind of good at zone one, well, then zone one becomes zone two. So it just, yeah, the zones
Yeah.
are just kind of like little, like you're ratcheting, like just like a car jack.
Yeah.
Just takes them up an increment, but it's the leverage
Ironically,
is easy.
it's the same way that I was taught how to play instruments. It's like everything that you just said is the same sequence. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, you can't do it. Can you do the first like chord? Okay, get good at the first chord. Now, can you play the second chord? Okay, now get good at the second chord. Now make them touch each
it's
other and then do that a little bit faster. Now let's add the third chord. So
yeah.
it's
I
the
get
same
it's like
sequence.
I guess it'd be like
Oh,
learning
that's great.
101. Yeah, I just say any exercise
Yeah.
that you think you can't do, even if you can do 30, 40, 50% of the range of motion, I said it's more important to work in zone four on your squat. So you're only going through the first 4/10 of the range of motion, but what each leg is doing and what each leg and hip is feeling is symmetrical over and over and over again. Symmetry of movement is way more important than going to 60% of the squat, but butt shifting over to the right because your left knee is kicking you over in that direction, which is what a lot of people are doing range of
An
motion at
awareness of our
any
feet.
cost. Yes. Or the foot starts
Yeah.
rotating outwards, but they're getting ass to the grass in their squat,
Mm.
but losing all, and not only are they leaking strength, as that strength is leaking and forcing their body's joints to, those movements are so the joint can survive. It's a survival
Mm.
response. When the foot turns out, if it doesn't, then the knee or something is going to get twisted to the point where it pops. So those are survival mechanisms. We don't ever want those just so we can say we squatted full range of motion or we did a full push up, but we're actually diving more on this shoulder and we're sagging at the, yeah, I'd rather zone three. It to somebody watching this guy, they look stupid, but their body is perfectly
Yeah.
homogeneous, and yeah, it's like a monolith.
Aren't you a little personally bored with the classical powerlifting moves compared to calisthenics and barefoot asymmetrical training? Like just between you and me, are you?
Yeah, no, I'm
Because
not.
I'm bored of classical training.
You know what I like the deadlift for and the barbell back squat the most for is the crush. Because nothing literally,
Okay.
there's no verse that putting that
Daniel's
bar.
laughing right now for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So one is, the bar is trying to like if it's on my I try to put it high and I try to make the longest lever out of my body so that I even like put my legs together, my feet touching. So I'm trying to make how a long stick is easier to
Hmm.
bend than a short stick, assuming the same diameter. I'm trying to make myself as long a stick as I can and with as much reasonable weight as I can. I'm trying to just load. I mean, I'm trying to get into that. It's basically putting this, a downward crush on me. And I do believe that's important for
Hmm.
me on occasion to be able to take that. And I do it slowly. And then the heavy deadlift, that the visceral, I consider those, how when you look at a porpoise, do you see pecs,
Hmm.
lats, delts? I don't see that on a porpoise. I see one mono muscle, right? It's just a muscle.
Hmm.
So when I'm squatting or when I'm deadlifting, I am basically an arm that's just extending. I'm not, it's not a leg thing. It's not a
Oh.
glute. It's not a back thing. I am systemic. And in fact, I've done a lot of my deadlifts. I will have a
Ooh.
very rounded back, and people give me all kinds of shit for it. They say, "Oh God, you're just showing at your age you should never be lifting like that with your back." But there's something about the fascia. I have a different view of the fascia. It's very crude. When people see me pulling pretty heavy barbells off the floor in what looks like a very bad posture, a very rounded back,
Hmm.
I tell them, okay, if I were to put a wetsuit on you and then another wetsuit, if I were to put, say, 15 wetsuits on you, and then I put a 300-pound barbell on
Yeah.
your back, and I asked you to just do something that looks like a squat, do you feel like that 300-pound barbell would damage you as much as it would without the wetsuits on? So I have a way of breathing into and expanding my back fascia that I am very comfortable pulling substantial loads from a very low position on the floor. And it does zero. There's nothing that enters my lower back because I'm taking what looks like a fishing
Yeah.
pole being just pulled backwards. But if you could take that fishing pole and put a webbing, like put a fan like webbing that extends like in a fan out. So the pull from on the tip is now being spread out over a fan where my lumbar fascia, if you start at my lower back
Yeah.
and you go outwards, the way the fascia in my back expands is like a fan. So my spine is is the middle rib of a fan. So I'm using actually my lats and my fascia to support that load. And I can Jefferson curl from that position, or I can deadlift from what looks like a very rounded back position. But my back is actually pretty straight. I'm just hanging it off the fascia. And I found that if I can, the more of whatever,
When
I'm sorry.
I'm so excited about what you're saying. You are definitely activating consciously the piezoelectric force of the fascia. And this is what happens when we're kids and we jump off a roof and we like
Uh-huh.
turn into jello,
Right.
or like you start to get amped up for something and you can like feel that buzz through the, so you're activating it.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing that consciously?
I expand. So I call it a double X posture
Okay.
with my clients. And now that I'm making videos, the kind of crude instruction I say is stand like a gorilla with a tall chest. But basically, what I'm trying to do is, how
It's
like a
amazing.
gorilla, like,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. If you kind of stand with your kind of hips slightly behind you and your chest is real tall with your arms hanging out
Yeah.
in front and they're not getting in the way
Okay.
of your knees, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but basically, I call this with my clients double X posture. extend your spine, expand your rib cage, the way a bodybuilder on stage stands. When you do that, you take all the slack
This is an opera
out of your
singer stance.
system. Yeah, oh, like that. Yeah. So you're taking out all the slack in your system, and you're also placing your joints in the most symmetrical relative position to each other that they can be. And if you take all the slack, if you're as tall and as broad as you can be, you're preloaded onto your core. So anything that now enters the system, the core can
Wow.
sense it and respond to it very quickly. Oftentimes when people squat, they'll get under the bar, but they'll actually, in some cases, they've been taught to try to telescope down on themselves to improve the leverage, because a long spine is more vulnerable to breakage because it's long, just like the stick analogy. But what they're forgetting is when you're short and kind of, like kind of trying to make yourself, your core, especially the things that span from the rib cage to the hips, like you play string instruments, it's like having your you're loose.
Mm-hmm.
If when we get up
Yeah.
tall and expand, now all of these strings are tight and they're ready to perform. So I always start from this position,
That's brilliant.
and then as I'm going, like in the case of a deadlift, like a bodybuilder, and I tell people, practice posing like a bodybuilder. I know guys would rather admit to jerking off than they'd admit to posing in the bathroom mirror. Okay? If you ask guys like, hey man, come on, tell me,
That's so
man,
funny.
you ever
Yeah.
check your shit out in the mirror? They go like, sometimes. They're so embarrassed. Yeah, but I tell people to do that. I tell people, like, put your hands up here and flex those
To
abs,
get
because
big in a way.
if people want to get cut, if I tell people, all right, if you want people to see your muscles, practice displaying your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
People are all ashamed to like flex and no, flex and hold and hold and hold, because how do we get stronger and how do we develop muscles? Not by lifting weights, by generating the tension required to lift the weights. So I said, you can get killer biceps and really good definition if all you have is a 20-pound or a 15-pound dumbbell. I said, over tension your curl. All you have to do that is make yourself, okay, pretend you're doing a photo shoot for a muscle mag, and there's photographers everywhere. So
Okay.
you don't know what angle they're shooting you at, but you want every picture to look stellar. Big up your chest, widen your lats, and as you're curling, show off your biceps. Don't just lift them, flex them. Make the veins pop. When you're a guy, when I'm curling a 20-pound dumbbell, what people should be seeing in my body and my arm and my breathing is a 50-pound curl. Yeah, because all I'm doing, my thing is, I like to see what's the least amount of weight I need to generate the most tension within my system to get the adaptive response with a minimal downside. And that's one of the ways I do it. I start with the longest lever, get as wide
Wow.
as I can. I'm trying to create the worst leverage possible to get the best engagement of my core and whatever muscles I'm using. I never start from a random or just any, like oftentimes you see people doing curls in the gym. They're standing from the gym. They're really working hard at what they're doing. And their mind is in their arms, but the body, the legs, the feet, everything is it's just an arm thing. When I curl, like the video I posted yesterday was how to use my lats, my chest, my entire body to curl a relatively light kettlebell. And if I do that properly, I can only get 3 reps with a 25-pound kettlebell before I have to rest. So
Yeah.
it's all fun. Yeah.
But training subtlety is, to me, that's the art form. That's why you have a coach. Like when I vocal train, right? She has me focusing fully on my pelvic floor. Basically, like I don't even focus on my breath anymore. I'm so concerned with my toes and my
Mm.
pelvic floor strength with perfect posture so that I can resonate the tone off of my head. And if I'm doing it right, I feel this pressure in my sternum. And no one can teach you that. You have to you have to find it. You have to hit your max belt over and over and then unlock what your coach says like a riddle. So everything that you're sharing here about paying attention to the literally paying attention to the tension
Yeah.
to maximize that moment. I mean, this is amazing advice that you're giving, Bill. Like, thank you.
Oh,
It
no.
translates to how I hold like an inverted handstand. Those isometric motions where you're
Hmm.
challenging both body lines simultaneously
Yeah,
and breathing, you know?
for sure. For sure. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah,
Are
so
you out of time, by the way? We
no,
got
yeah,
locked
we
in a
can do
bit,
one more
but
question if you want. Yeah, we can
you're
go
already
one
late,
more.
aren't you?
Yeah. No, I'm
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Oh, this is the question I want to. I wrote down all these crazy questions to ask you
Yeah.
because I was like, I don't want to ask him normal, basic bitch stuff.
Hey,
What do
weird
you
stuff.
say to yourself when you fail? Like when you fail at
Yeah.
something, what's your self-talk
Well,
about it?
this is kind of, I don't know if this is sad or not, but my entire life has been a litany of failure. So, and I say that because number one, I want to be honest. Oftentimes, yeah, I've had, you know, things in my past. Everybody has. It's what defines us, the struggles. So, but in the past, I feel kind of just as much now as I used to when I was younger. I just feel obviously in a different way now. But the younger version of me, when I would try something and then I'd fail, because I had so much experience failing since I was a little kid, the dialogue was, serves you right for fucking trying, you dumb shit. What'd you expect? That's the dialogue
Mm.
for much of my life. Remember, I mentioned before that I realized rather recently that I've been living with long-term, I
Mm.
guess, depression. I guess it makes sense if that's the way you that's what you got going on with yourself. I was very harsh on my younger version of myself, even the version of myself as a child. And we can go on all that stuff. But now when I fail, then after I'd say, you dumb shit, look what you, then I'd become angry. I'd become very pissed off. And I usually take it out on the thing I failed at. Usually people say, this stupid fucking remote, God damn, who designed this shit, right?
Mm.
We really know what's up with that. So that's the way. It wasn't very good management, and like give my wife less. I give her a lot of credit for still being with me because it took me a long time to realize that's where I was coming from, and it took me even longer to figure out how to try to get a grip on that. But having kids certainly you that your problem solving skills, if having children does not in some way improve that, then nothing can save you. Because and then I had a few experience. I had an experience with cancer, and then just being on social media
Yeah.
now for the last 4 years, I've now learned that failure is a process. Before I used to look at it as only a result, and a result that was to be avoided at all costs, even if it meant not trying. But now failure is. I just today I told a client I'm just trying to teach him that flow rope thing, and he was struggling with it and getting pissed.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to tell you this right now. When you do figure out this pattern, you will not be able to not do it anymore. And at that moment, its utility to us is over. The struggle, you see how pissed off you are, is because your brain
Mm.
can't reverse this infinity pattern to this. And that's the beauty of what's going on here. You're getting mad because you're feeling like nothing's happening, but whether you get pissed off or not, your brain doesn't like this any more than you do. And it is trying as hard as it can, and it's going to figure this out. So just fucking chill, okay? Have some water, and then we're going to do this again, and we're going to practice, and we're going to enjoy fucking up. Because I promise you, it's going to click instantly, and
Mm.
then you'll see how useless this activity now is, but there's another one we can do after that. So that's how I look at failure now. I
The love
now
of
have come to
growth.
terms. I've now come
Yeah.
to, yeah, it is now a process. Like, and now I just certainly, I avoid it less. I avoid it less. I'm more willing to, I'm really bad at like DIY home fix it stuff because I usually end up taking like what should be just patch a hole in the wall and then sand it. Now I have to replace the entire drywall. Okay. But I'm now more willing to do stuff like that. I'm more willing to do stuff with the social media and fail. And I don't attach my
Mm.
identity to it the way I used to. I now learn that that process
Good. I'm happy to
is
hear that.
strengthening my identity. I still avoid stuff because I'm still kind of a chicken shit sometimes, but that's just me being normal, right?
Oh,
But at the same time, I'm more the way I look at failure now is I don't take it as personally. And I actually kind of embrace it a little more as part of a process. So I'm either going to get the result that I'm hoping for, or I'm going to learn that that result was maybe
yeah.
not what was for me, or that I just need to be more worthy of that result. One of those things. But either way, it helps me to kind of move forward and be willing to fail again because
Yeah.
it's not failure. So
Failure is just part of the process because I feel like that's what you and I are trying to tell people is like stop listening to the norm and challenge and experiment with yourself. All the tools you need are within yourself. It's
yeah,
just a matter of having the sequences to unlock it and taking a true awareness check of how you're managing things. And
absolutely.
I would love to have this conversation again. I would love to ask you
Let's do
about,
that.
the things that trigger your stress response still and how you manage those. And in the meantime, would it would genuinely be an honor and a privilege to show you the work that I'm doing on the fascia and to gift that to you in the hopes that you
That'd be
can just
great.
continue to train and be an inspiration for the next 50 years, you know?
Yeah, no, no. Like I said, I've been watching what you do on your posts. It aligns with the things I'm already into, the feet, the breathing, and you know even the frequencies and the sounds and the yeah, those are all things I'm just kind of either I'm moving towards we're moving towards each other. So yeah, let's do it. Brooke, you know what? I
Yeah.
have your phone number, right?
Awesome.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. But we will have
Okay,
yeah, we'll
cool.
continue this conversation and thanks for having me.
Dude, you're the best, man.
No, you are too.